Hello, welcome to this video, welcome to my channel. My name is Emma and today I'm going to be sharing with you my September TBR. So there are going to be two parts to this TBR, the first one being my non-readathon TBR books, and the second part being my book roast Magical Readathon TBR. So I have my reading journal right here and let's get to it. The first book on my TBR is Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. I am actually 23 minutes from the end of the audiobook as we speak, so I will definitely be finishing that one up toot sweet. Gone Girl is about Nick and Amy Dunn, who are a married couple. They both have a perspective in the book, and Amy disappears one day. She is nowhere to be found. It looks like there was a struggle in the living room, but no one can figure out where she is at all. Nick, Amy's husband, is the prime suspect because the old cliche goes, it's always the husband. And so he's the prime suspect and he has to convince everyone that he is innocent while more and more evidence keeps stacking up against him. I have been utterly captivated by this book, but I am going to talk about it more in my wrap-up for September. You can also see my more detailed thoughts in my reading vlogs, but I think that my thoughts are only going to make sense if you've read the book because I'm trying to be so vague because I don't want to spoil anything at all. I want everything to remain a mystery for people who haven't read it because that is the best way to consume a thriller. The next book on my TBR is The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. I am currently reading this. I currently have it checked out from my local library. I am 110 pages in and super loving it so far. The Da Vinci Code is one of my favorite movies. I've only recently watched it for the first time though, and I've watched it several times since that first time. So I wanted to go ahead and read the book. Actually, in reading the book, I think that I thought The Da Vinci Code was the first book in the Robert Langdon series, but I think Angels and Demons is the first book in the Robert Langdon series. Either way, I'm tracking, I'm doing good because I love this story. The Da Vinci Code, if you haven't heard, because I think it's one of like the most famous books of all time, but if you haven't heard, the Da Vinci Code is about a professor of symbology named Robert Langdon. He is an American man and he is speaking at a convention, a conference, something like that, in Paris when one of his old colleagues, who he was supposed to have drinks with that night, is mysteriously murdered on the floor of La Louvre. And there's a bunch of weird symbols on his body, so Robert Langdon is called in to figure all that out. That is the most basic premise that I can provide, and all I can say is if you haven't read or watched The Da Vinci Code, read and watch The Da Vinci Code. I love the movie so much, and I'm really excited to get to read the book, but the story just overall, I mean, 110 pages in, there's already like several differences that I can point out between the movie and the book, but the story overall is just fantastic. Next on my September TBR is my last library book that I have checked out right now. It is Probable Clause by Rita Mae Brown and her cat Sneaky Pie. And almost by cue, my cat ran up to me to say hello. Would you like to come say hello? Here she is. Okay, goodbye. So back to your regularly scheduled programming. Probable Clause is a cozy mystery about a woman named Harry who lives in a small town and solves murder mysteries with her two cats, Mrs. Murphy and Pewter, and her dog, what's his name? T. Tucker, who's a corgi. I cannot tell you how excited I am to break into the world of cozy mysteries. My mother has just started reading cozy mysteries and has been recommending the cat-based ones to me because obviously I adore my cat more than anything in the world. So she's been reading the Cat Who ... series, but I saw this in the library when I was looking for the Cat Who series and decided to pick it up because I like that it's co-written by the author's cat, and I also love the cover, and I like the pun. So I just went for it. The next book on my TBR is The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. This is another really famous psychological thriller that I have checked out from my local library on its audiobook Libby situation, and it is about a very successful woman. I believe that she is a doctor, like I don't know if she's a PhD doctor or like an MD doctor, but she has some sort of doctorate degree, but she is suffering severely with agoraphobia, and so she does not go outside. Agoraphobia is the fear of being in public, and so often agoraphobes just stay inside permanently until they can get their phobia under control. So this woman witnesses something very suspicious, very evil, very grotesque, so I hear. It was probably a murder, and she has to figure out what to do because she can't leave her house because of her phobia. After listening on audiobook to two really popular thrillers this week, one being Leave the Door Open? No. Lock Every Door. That's just the opposite of, anyway. Lock Every Door by Riley Sager and Gone Girl. I am really excited to get into more thrillers, but I want to do the heavy hitters first, the ones that everyone has read, before I dive into more unknown thrillers, not as popular, ones without film adaptations. So, very excited about this. And then the last book on this portion of my TBR is The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. This is a more paranormal-based horror thriller book about a Southern ladies book club that there's vampires and people are dying, and there's some commentary on racism. That's what I know about it. That's how I know how to explain it. Olivia Reads a Latte has raved about it, so that's all I really need to know. But I am very excited to read this book. I was born and raised in the South, currently live in the South, just in a different state. Hi, Mom and Dad. And I'm really excited to see what kind of representation the South gets. I really don't know where the book is set, which will definitely influence the kind of South that it takes place in. But I'm very excited for the vampire element juxtaposed against the South. It seems like a very harsh juxtaposition, and I am so here for it. So there is a chance that I will be reading some other audiobooks here and there. I have a list, kind of like a running list of audiobooks that I'm interested in, but for now, that's all that I have on my direct TBR. Those are all of my current library books that are due in 2 weeks, and also my Libby library audiobook holds. So now to the more fun part. I don't want to say now to the fun part because this whole thing is fun, but now to the more exciting and magical part of this video. About a week ago, I recorded my Magical Readathon TBR and then realized that I needed to do a full September TBR because I wasn't going to just read those books. I was going to read some other things as well, so that's why I'm making this clip now. I am participating in G from Book Roast's Magical Readathon this fall. I could not be more excited, so cut to Emma from a week ago explaining to you my character and the path on the Novice Path that I will be taking. Last year in the early summer, I participated in the Magical Readathon, but this year, G from Book Roast has made some significant changes to the Magical Readathon. She has created her own fantasy world with creatures and continents and islands and schools, and the goal is to get to a magical school that she's created called the Aurelium Academy. But for now, this year, the first year of the new Magical Readathon, we are all participating in the Novice Path. You have to travel far and wide and go through different challenges and tests in order to be able to participate in the Aurelium Academy next time the Magical Readathon comes around. First, I want to talk about my background as a character. My character is going to be a fire earthling from the province of Etheria. I've seen some people say like, oh, I'm just gonna make my D&D character. My D&D character is nothing like this character for the Magical Readathon. My D&D character is actually inspired by Elsa. She's like an ice queen fairy situation, but this character, I wanted to make it kind of cottagecore-ish, so I have a wildling background from the province of Etheria. G said that it was like the kind of very green and lush but very haunted place, and I'm from Fire Earthling heritage. So the wildling prompt is to read a book largely set outside. For this, I'm going to read The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham. It's an audiobook on script that I've really been wanting to read, and so I'm gonna set it aside for the Magical Readathon. The Only Good Indians has a very mysterious synopsis, but from what I can tell, it's about the lives of 4 men who are American Indians who are dealing with the consequences of having their native culture ripped away from them and denying it. There is something out in the forest coming to wreak vengeance on them. And that's all the synopsis says. But I'm assuming that it takes place mostly outside since there is a buck on the cover. So I'm just going to assume that that's the case and go with it, but I'm really excited to read this thriller. So next, my Earthling character is coming from the province of Etheria, which, like I said, is a very lush and green place, but is very, very haunted. I think it's also the home of the Fae, and so the prompt for Etheria is to read a book featuring Fae or Elven character. Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare. If you've read any of the Shadowhunter books, you'll know that Fae are heavily featured. They use our main characters as pawns very often, and so I have been wanting to read Chain of Iron for a while and just never gotten around to it. It is the second book in the new series that is coming out, that is the sequel series to the Clockwork series. I was originally going to try for Heritage to be an Earthling, but I couldn't find for the life of me any book that I wanted to read that either had elemental magic so that I could choose Earth, or that had Earth in the title, because I'm currently reading House of Earth and Blood, but I'll be done with that, and I don't think I want to read it again that soon. I mean, if I do, maybe I'll change my mind. But what I decided to go with is The Burning Girls by C.J. Tudor. This is another thriller. You will see in this TBR list that this is very indicative of my reading taste. It's basically thrillers and fantasy. The Burning Girls is about a female Anglican vicar who moves to a new town to take over the parsonage of this tiny town where the former vicar was just found hung in the church because he discovered something that he shouldn't have. So when she arrives, she and her daughter are getting settled, and in her possessions waiting for her, she finds an exorcism kit. So that sounds really cool. The synopsis is giving me The Conjuring vibes, but I'm not sure if that's a reasonable evaluation for those who've read it, but I'm also really excited for this thriller. So next up is The Novice Path. I chose 3 options. You only needed to choose 2, but there were 3 that I really liked the sound of and that fit things that were kind of already on my radar. So I have The Novice Path Entrance, Obsidian Falls, and the Aurelian Academy Arch. And so those are the 3 things that I'm going to hopefully pass through. The Aurelian Academy Arch is kind of just an optional thing. I really definitely want to do the Novice Path Entrance and Obsidian Falls. Those are my like necessary, but if I finish those with time, then I will definitely do the Aurelian Academy Arch. So for the Novice Path Entrance, the prompt is to read a book with a map. So for that, I'm going to read The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, which is a fantasy classic. I kind of mentioned this in another video, but I feel like right now what I'm trying to do with my reading is catch up on all of the really popular books that I haven't read yet. The Name of the Wind is definitely gonna be a work to get through. I think it's probably a big book and it's high fantasy, but I think I can do it. I will be honest, I literally don't even know what The Name of the Wind is about, but it is, like I said, a very well-known classic fantasy book, and so I'm just gonna go with it and find out when I get there. Next, for Obsidian Falls, I'm going to read a thriller or a mystery book, so I have a couple of options for this, depending on what I decide to read for the Aurelian Academy Arch. So I currently own The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. I'm not sure. This is a dark academia thriller that surrounds, I think, Greek and classic studies. This college student believes that one of her professors, her Greek professor, is a murderer. So that sounds pretty awesome to me. If I decide instead to read The Maidens for my Aurelium Academy Arch prompt, then I'm going to read When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole for the Obsidian Falls prompt. When No One Is Watching is a thriller detailing how a woman basically watches as her neighborhood in Brooklyn gets gentrified before her eyes. Apparently it's really creepy, really awesome, and has obviously some great social commentary and very timely social commentary. So I've been wanting to read this one for a while. And then the Aurelium Academy Art prompt, which is to read a book with a school setting. So The Maidens by Alex Michaelides is an obvious choice. I want to make sure this gets in there somehow because it is the only one that I have at hand. I'll have to buy or check out from the library for all the others. Wow, would you look at that? Isn't time travel fun? So that is all from me today. Thank you so much for watching this video. Sorry it was kind of cobbled together, but I wanted to make sure that I got all of this in here and didn't just like go with half of my TBR. I wanted to let you know all of my plans, all of my grand plans. So yeah, I am so pumped about this TBR. I'm hoping that I can get it all done. I have had a good track record recently with reading, so knock on wood that that will continue. But nevertheless, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you are doing well. If you're not, that is just fine. And I hope that you love what you are reading. Goodbye.